Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we normally discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information, but today we're going to talk about something a little different. Before I get into it, as always, if you go to patreon.com/dspiffy, there's hundreds of videos of behind the scenes content and additional stuff, just other cool things. Encourage you to check it out. Okay, so today we're going to talk about House on the Rock. House on the Rock is related to ceiling fans. There's a great number installed there, including some custom made, including some antiques, including some weird and cool stuff. And I probably would never have gotten involved at House on the Rock if not for ceiling fans. I went as a kid a couple of times. I loved it, including the ceiling fans. I went back as an adult when I was working for the museum to see if the custom stuff was still there, and it is. But I've come to love it for a great deal more than just ceiling fans. It's become another one of my passions. And one of my favorite things to do is to take people who have never been there. So if you've never been to House on the Rock, I want to extend an invitation to you. If you're somebody that follows me on social media, on YouTube, etc., and you'd like to go, I would like to take you. If you don't know what it is, the best way I can think of to describe it is to go to the videos I've posted from the TV show American Gods. American Gods was a book that was written inspired by House on the Rock and in part set there. It was turned into a TV show, and the TV show had at least one episode filmed on site. I've got permission to post the footage on my YouTube channel, and I think the first video just says American Gods footage filmed at House on the Rock, number 1 or part 1 or whatever I put on the title. I feel like that sums it up as best as you can. Really, the less you know before you go, the more fun it is. So, let's get into what we're going to talk about today. I was researching the history of House on the Rock, specifically the history of the admission prices, because as we know from the history of it, originally it was not intended to be open to the public. Alex Jordan Jr., the original creator of it, was just building something for himself, and people came to look at it, and in order to get away, but they wouldn't. Okay, I'm going to charge you money. And people paid the money, and people kept coming. And it started out at 25 cents, 5 cents if you believe American Gods. Today, if you want to go to House on the Rock, it costs $37 a person. And some people complain when admission prices increase, and I wanted to research how they had increased over the years. And in doing that, I found a whole lot of other information from newspapers and articles and other sources that isn't part of the public history of House on the Rock, at least not well known. It's meant to be kind of a mystery. It's meant to be kind of an enigma. There's a reason why I don't like telling people too much about it before I take them there. But I learned some things. I consider myself to be one of the experts. I've been there as much as anyone, befriended people that work there, read up on it as much as anyone. I've read the books, etc. I learned some things that I didn't know. So, let's get into it. I've typed out notes the same way I do for Workbench videos in timeline fashion. In fact, I did that before I knew I was going to make a Workbench video of it. I just said, okay, let me start making notes. And then I was like, okay, I've got the Workbench notes. Let's do the Workbench video. So, we start in 1944. Alex Jordan Jr. is 30 years old. He begins construction. So, for those who don't know the starting history, House on the Rock was built on Deer Shelter Rock in Spring Green, Wisconsin, which is basically farmland. It's basically the middle of nowhere. If you go there today, it's still farmland, except for this one big thing, and Taliesin, which is Frank Lloyd Wright's school. And there's an old legend that's never been confirmed that Alex Jordan Sr., the father, who is a developer, had a feud with Frank Lloyd Wright, where Alex Jordan Sr. had brought some of his plans to Frank Lloyd Wright. Frank Lloyd Wright had said, I wouldn't hire you to design a chicken coop. And so out of spite, him and his son built this house, that was meant to be a fuck you house to Frank Lloyd Wright, within eyesight of Frank Lloyd Wright's school, Taliesin. That's a legend. It's unconfirmed. What we do know is that Alex Jordan Jr. was originally going up there and camping and just hanging out there, and decided to build a more permanent structure on land he did not even own. And in 1944 is when he first completed a small house on the rock. By this point, people had already started to get a wind of what was happening, and after they wouldn't leave, he started charging them 25 cents to visit, according to the novel American Gods, 5 cents. The next milestone is almost 10 years later in 1952 when electricity is added. I really wonder how that was done when it didn't have a physical address and he didn't own the land. How do you call up the power company and say, hey, I need electricity at this address I don't own, but wait, there's no address. I'm very curious, but that was 1952. 1953, the first phase of the original house that's still standing today, that you can still visit today, is completed. Alex Jordan Jr. leases the land from the farm that owned it for $7.50 a year. He signs a 40-year lease. Even back then, that was cheap. In 1956, Alex Jordan Sr. gets wind of what's happening and buys the land from the farmer and the surrounding 240 acres for $12,000. Some say it was to keep his son out of trouble because Alex Jordan Jr. really didn't have much of a career at that point and he'd been in trouble with the law before. Again, some people say it's the Frank Lloyd Wright thing. Whatever the reason. In 1958, the mortgage on the land is paid off. And in 1960, House on the Rock unofficially opens to the public. Admission cost 50 cents. Alex Jordan Jr. made $15 the first day and $5,000 the first year. In 1961, House on the Rock officially opens to the public. It's in the papers, there's a sign on the highway, etc. There's a stone marker placed on Highway 23, which is the closest highway. Also 1961, the gatehouse opens. Alex had built a second structure that you had to go through to get to the actual house. It's called the gatehouse. You can still visit it today. Gross profits for 1961, $31,000. They hosted an art show there in 1961. I have a feeling a lot of the art shows and fashion shows that were hosted there, which was something I didn't know about as a fan of House on the Rock. I didn't know. If you go there today, it seems like a very peculiar place to have an art show or a fashion show or a wedding or anything like that. But in the first 10 years or so, when Alex's mom was still alive, there was a lot of that sort of thing. And most of it stopped around the time she died, leading me to believe that that was her thing. She also had a controlling interest in the company, House on the Rock Inc., which we'll get to in a minute. So the first art show was hosted in 1961. The first mention of House on the Rock in local newspapers is in 1961. Mr. and Mrs. Alex Jordan Sr. host their 50th wedding anniversary at their summer home, House on the Rock. It's 1961. 1962 is the first mention of House on the Rock as an attraction or tourist destination in the Baraboo News Republic. Baraboo is another city that's maybe an hour or so away. That was the first newspaper to actually call it a tourist attraction, which is what it's generally referred to now. The gross profits for 62, $21,000, which is less than the previous year. House on the Rock is incorporated as a legal corporation in the state of Wisconsin in 1962 by Alex Jordan Sr. and his wife, not the son. We'll get to that a little bit later. In 1963, Alex Jordan Sr. dies, leaving his ownership of the land, house, and corporation to his wife. Again, not his son. I think there's a lot of reading between the lines that could happen there. It really does seem like he didn't fully trust his son, or, didn't fully buy into what he was doing, whatever, but he left the corporation, the land, etc., to his wife. As of 1963, they raised the admission prices. It is now $1.25 and $1.50 on Sundays. Some sources say it was $1.50 every day. Most sources say $1.25, $1.50 on Sundays. In 1964, they add an aviary, which is like a fancy birdhouse, a duck pond, and a prairie dog village. Those are things you don't see any sign of today. If you go there today, it's mostly indoors, and the outdoor stuff is all Japanese garden. We'll talk about that later. So I had no idea they ever had livestock on the site. So that's pretty cool. A walkway is added to replace the drawbridge. Again, during the first 10 years or more, well, during the initial, when it was just a structure on a rock, there was a rope ladder that Alex would have to toss down for people to get up there. Then there was a drawbridge. Now there's an official walkway. The gatehouse is completed. Now, we mentioned the gatehouse before in 1961. It was opened in 1961, but not completed until 1964. And that's a theme we're going to see throughout this, is Alex Jr. would build a building, let people in it, but not finish it until a few years later. Alex Jordan Jr. takes out his first mortgage on House on the Rock for $30,000 so he could invest more money into it. 1965, they add treetop ramps, which is something, unless they're referring to something that's there today, which I doubt, I've never seen, and that sounds really cool to me, that you could walk among the treetops on ramps and walkways. Really cool. I've never seen it. But that was added in 1965. Also in 1965, Alex Jordan Jr. suffers a heart attack. House on the Rock Incorporated buys another 40 acres that year. In 1966, the Moon Gate, which is now gone, I believe that was part of the gatehouse possibly, and the Wildlife Pond are completed. Wildlife Pond was started earlier but completed. And a waterfall was also added in 1966. And in 1966, House on the Rock hosts its first fashion show. Again, while Alex's mom was alive, there were a lot of art shows, there were a lot of fashion shows. In 1967, House on the Rock advertises the largest fireplace in the world. I believe that's the one that you now see in what's called the Mill House, because in 1968, the Mill House is completed. And I think I might have been confused before. I think maybe the Moon Gate was going into the Mill House. I'm not sure. Again, this was all many years before I ever visited, and it's all, some of it's very different now. I'd love to see it. I've got some pictures that you'll see in a newspaper slideshow coming up, but yeah, I don't know for sure. In 1969, Alex Jordan Jr.'s mom dies, leaving the controlling interest in the property to him. She was listed as the president of House on the Rock, and her son was listed as the secretary and treasurer. I just want to point out that up until that point, despite him being the one that had built most of everything with his own hands, he was the secretary and treasurer of an organization, company, etc., that his parents owned. And it wasn't until his mom died that it actually legally became his. So again, that may explain some things. House on the Rock this year is given diamond placement in AAA's tourism book. So that's pretty early, 1969. It was pretty much just the three houses then. House on the Rock is mentioned in a real estate listing implying that it's for sale for $75,000, which is, I don't know. I've seen the real estate listing with my own two eyes in the newspaper. Somebody claimed to be listing it for sale for $75,000. Obviously, it didn't sell. We don't know what actually happened. In theory, it would have been worth way more than that if they're bringing in that much every year in admission prices, even with all the costs. So I don't know what that's about. But, I mean, again, with all the drama with who owned it and his parents not seeming to trust him with it, it seems like maybe somebody that was dealing with his mom's estate tried to list it for sale. I don't know. It was in the newspaper. So that is 69. The first mortgage that Alex took out is paid off that year. In 1970, the Streets of Yesterday opens. Admission is now $1.50, higher on Sundays and holidays. It doesn't say how much higher. The duck pond and the wildlife area are closed, citing issue with foxes. Foxes were eating the ducks and the prairie dogs. It's the last year for the art and fashion shows. Again, those seem to be a thing that his mom did. Basically, my son built this house and we'll make it useful for something, so we're throwing so much money at it, we might as well make it useful for something. Well, we'll use it to host art shows and fashion shows. And that's probably how she justified it, but when she died, they stopped. In 1971, the Music of Yesterday starts construction. And if you don't know what the Music of Yesterday is, I don't want to spoil it for you. There are videos on YouTube. But I think it's one of everybody's favorite parts. 1972. Admission is now $2.25, $2.50 on Sundays and holidays. The Mill House now has live goats. Alex Jordan takes out a $90,000 mortgage on House on the Rock. Alex Jordan breaks his neck in a car accident. It's 1972. 1974, the Music of Yesterday is completed. Admission is now $2.50 daily. We're done with the higher on Sundays and holidays. Only one goat remains, and his name is Lucifer. And if you've been to House on the Rock, you might understand why that amuses me. In 1975, Alex Jordan is Know Your Madisonian, and the last mortgage is paid off. In 1976, admission is $4. In 1977, admission is $4.50. In 1978, admission is now $6. The Wisconsin State Justice Department dictates House on the Rock can no longer display their collections as museum pieces with existing signage claiming that they're authentic and claiming what they are. Specifically, they take issue with the Great Ivory Tusk of Ranchipur and the Franz Joseph. The Great Ivory Tusk of Ranchipur is just a big carved, what looks to be an elephant tusk, that according to the State Department is not authentic. And the Franz Joseph is a music machine that allegedly was given to the Emperor Franz Joseph, but House on the Rock couldn't prove that, or somebody else proved that that was made up. The music machine is real and does play, but they could no longer say it was this blah-de-blah, whatever. Also, in 78, OSHA, the Occupational Health and Safety Administration, fines House on the Rock for improper electrical wiring and lack of fire escapes. All of these complaints about the authenticity of the displays and the wiring and whatever else came from a fired employee. Alex Jordan fired someone, and he went and complained to everybody that would listen, and the state came and investigated and issued some fines. Also, in the original house, the windows, which you could originally see in and out of, are replaced with stained or colored glass. Real plants and trees inside the house are replaced with fakes. I'm not exactly sure why they changed the windows to colored glass. I do think it adds to the mystique, but the reason that they changed the plants is because once they changed the windows, the real plants couldn't live inside anymore. Also, in 1978, one of the roofs collapses. I don't know which one. Obviously, they've replaced it. In 1979, the Carousel begins construction. The Carousel is one of the crown jewels of House on the Rock, and there's lots of pictures and videos available, but again, I recommend if you haven't been there, wait and go see it for yourself. House on the Rock is fielding sale offers for $13 million, including one from Marriott Corporation, which at the time owned Six Flags. In 1980, House on the Rock is burglarized. In 1981, the Carousel is completed and is unveiled on Good Friday. The organ room is added but not completed. There are 500,000 visitors to see the new Carousel. In 1982, the doll Carousel room, the Cannon Building, which later becomes one of the kind of exhibits near the end, I think it's the one with the SMCs Rick likes, the Cannon Building advertising the world's largest cannon is added. House on the Rock is featured in Ripley's Believe It or Not. Alex Jordan is now working on opening a dinner theater, which I don't think ever happened. Admission is now $7. Badger Concessions is awarded the concession contract. I'm not going to go into it here, but if you go into old newspaper articles, apparently the House on the Rock concessions contract was very lucrative. Some people went to jail. Some people fled the country. It kind of implies the mob was involved. It was all, whoa. So, again, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, you can. I'm going to drop that and keep moving. In 1983, the gardens are added, which are a precursor to the gardens you see today. Admission is now $8. An artist who worked for House on the Rock is convicted of buying stolen goods. Were they for Alex Jordan? I don't know. The concessions contract is now given to Objet Vertu Inc, which is a company that was incorporated somewhere out of the country. Again, there was a whole bunch of drama. There are newspaper articles about it, etc. In 1984, the Dollhouse Room is added. Admission is now $10. House on the Rock opens an artist village, recruiting local artists to showcase work. So kind of honoring the heritage of his mom a little bit, I think, maybe. In 1985, the Infinity Room is completed, which is another crown jewel of House on the Rock. The Bavarian Beer Garden, which I don't recall having ever seen, and the on-site antique shop, that's a little bit of a tongue twister, open. House on the Rock is featured on lifestyles and of the rich and famous. If anybody can find that footage, let me know. I have it down as 85, but I'm not certain of the year. I know it was between 84 and 88, and somebody told me it was 85, so that's just, if you can find that footage, I'd love to see it. In 1986, there are write-ups that advertise House on the Rock as having a secret room within a wall as part of its exhibits. Never seen that, so no idea what happened with that. Contractors involved in House on the Rock are convicted of a felony. So there's a lot of drama going on in the 80s. House on the Rock Incorporated buys 526 additional acres, which is a lot of land. In 1987, the Circus Building and the galleries are added. The galleries are the kind of museum-y rooms that come after the Carousel and after the organ room. House on the Rock buys an entire museum of ships and sea artifacts from the city of Seattle. And if you have been to House on the Rock, you know what's coming next with the Museum of Ships and Sea Artifacts. Construction begins on Heritage of the Sea. In 1988, House on the Rock is sold to Art Donaldson for $17 million. Some articles say $21 million. Originally, Alex promised to will it to the county after saying, "Oh, I'd never sell House on the Rock. I'd never sell House on the Rock. If I die, it'll go to the county." But he ends up selling it to a good friend of his who did all of his advertising contracts and all the billboards that you see. The sale agreement says it reverts back to Alex Jordan if anything falls through. Meanwhile, Alex Jordan is still working on House on the Rock. Even after selling it, he begins building the Mannequin Orchestra. The gross profits for 1988 are $5 million. The Wisconsin State Journal does a front page, 9-page story and expose on House on the Rock and Alex Jordan. In 1989, admission is now $13. Alex Jordan passes away on November 6th from a heart attack. Did he sell it because he knew he was going to die, or did he die because he sold it? But what might be telling is that he refused heart surgery that could have saved him. There was no funeral per his request. The Capital Times, which is one of our primary newspapers here in the city of Madison, the Capital Times publishes an article claiming he left behind an illegitimate son, Alex Jordan III, by girlfriend Dorothy Gasse. This was the first I'd ever heard about him having an illegitimate son, but Alex Jordan III is kind of a convincing name, and allegedly there was a marriage license that was annulled and a birth certificate, and there was some evidence. So again, you can go down that rabbit hole if you want to. We'll talk about one specific rabbit hole that you can go down in a little bit. Alex Jordan III is not mentioned in the will, and he retains a lawyer. In 1990, the Heritage of the Sea is completed. Rozino's Slice of the Rock opens, which is the pizza restaurant that is now there under different ownership at House on the Rock. But in my opinion, it's a big part of the experience. You get a slice of pizza when you're about a third of the way through it. The Creative Center opens, which is a precursor to the Alex Jordan Center you see today. The first book about House on the Rock and Alex Jordan is written, a negative expose. The Wisconsin State Journal publishes a similar expose. And when I said you could go into a little deep dive about his illegitimate son and all that, that book and that expose are one way you can do that. I'm actually going to publish the State Journal expose in the slideshow. I'm going to post a slideshow of newspaper pictures and articles about House on the Rock, and I'm going to include that. So even if all you have is my YouTube channel, you'll be able to read that expose as well as the one from while Alex was still alive, done in the State Journal a year earlier. So Jordan's son loses in probate court. He could not prove that he was actually Alex Jordan's son, despite the fact that there was allegedly a birth certificate and other things. Several cousins of Jordan also contest his will. His will ends up distributing his estate between his longtime girlfriend and the House on the Rock employees. Most of the employees of House on the Rock get hundreds of thousands of dollars, the ones that have been with him for years at least. In 1991, the holiday tour is added, which we now know as Christmas at House on the Rock, with all of the Santas. And that was the doing of the wife of the new owner, who loved Christmas and collected Santas. And that's something that was done all throughout her life and continues today. The Blue Danube is unveiled, which is a music machine in the music of yesterday. The first official authorized biography of Alex Jordan is published, I'm sure in response to the negative tell-all book the year before, 2 years before. In 1992, House on the Rock hosts Flowerama, a huge flower festival. The Garden Cafe opens. Food and music is featured for Oktoberfest, and then they also decorate for Halloween on October 31st. So they're doing a lot of holiday themes under the new ownership. House on the Rock celebrates their 50-year anniversary. In 1993, admission is now $13.50. House on the Rock hosts June Dairy Month celebration, including a calf petting zoo and a cow milking contest. I can't picture that. I can't picture cows at House on the Rock. I can't picture the goats either, but that was much earlier, before all the complexes were built. I got nothing. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But again, I would say, oh, Alex Jordan would never, but he had fucking goats. So obviously it fits in that I just didn't know. They also had garden days featuring the most elaborate gardens in the state. The state of Wisconsin starts road construction projects to facilitate easier access to House on the Rock. And that's because the new owner is a big businessman in the state of Wisconsin. And so he was like, hey, build some highways to make more people to my new business. And in 1994, Highway 23, which is the highway that House on the Rock is closest to, is reconstructed. In 1995, the tribute to nostalgia is completed. It is called at the time the Transportation Building. In 1996, the outdoor grill becomes the Wildlife Cafe. House on the Rock hosts a job fair, and it adds directional wizards. I don't know what directional wizards are. They're not there today. I have no idea. I don't know. If anybody knows, post it in the comments. That was one of the things that I read, just like the cows, where I'm like, huh? Okay. 1997. Admission is now $14.70. House on the Rock wins the Brass Ring Award from the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions. House on the Rock Inn opens. In 1999, admission is now $15.40. House on the Rock and Art Donaldson buy the Springs Resort. A Wisconsin couple builds a house modeled after House on the Rock, including a miniature infinity room. I'm going to post pictures of that in the upcoming slideshow too. In the year 2000, admission is now $19.50. Sorry, I don't have anything cool for that year, just an admission increase. That's a tribute to Old Conan. 2001, the novel American Gods is published, which is inspired by the author's visit to House on the Rock, and a good part of the book is set at House on the Rock. In 2002, the spirit of aviation is added. In 2005, the Inspiration Point is added. In 2006, the Alex Jordan Center opens, and admission makes the biggest jump in recent history to $26.50. In 2008, the Welcome Center, Japanese Garden, Moongate Walkway, and Mill House are all renovated, and the original gift and candy shop are closed. In 2009, the Alex Jordan Historic Center and the Asian Gardens are completed. The admission is now $28.50. In 2010, the House on the Rock Journal, an online blog, debuts. It is abandoned in 2017. House on the Rock and Neil Gaiman host a reading for fans of American Gods on location at House on the Rock. In 2011, House on the Rock offers guided tours during the winter season only, with advance ticket discounts online for the regular season. In 2012, the Dark Side of the Rock opens, which is when they decorate for Halloween and turn it even more into a haunted house than it already is. I've been meaning to go for years. I've never been able to get it to line up with my schedule. They only do it on certain days. I even showed up one year on the wrong day, and I've never been. I still want to go. I've been for the Christmas, for the Santa tour. The Santa tour is, it's a Christmas decorations. It's festive. It's nice. But the Halloween one, I mean, you're taking something that already seems like a haunted house and making it more of a haunted house. So I'm waiting for that. In 2015, Rozino's Slice of the Rock closes, and the pizza restaurant is now operated by House on the Rock. A lot of people have talked about how the pizza used to be good and then it wasn't. That's probably what happened. We'll talk about the more recent changes a little sooner. The Inspiration Point restaurant is closed and merged with the pizza restaurant. So it used to be you could get pizza at Rozino's Slice on the Rock, and you could get like hot dogs and other concessions at Inspiration Point. When Rozino's closes, they just moved everything all together at the pizza restaurant and closed Inspiration Point. They still haven't reopened it because when they were about to reopen it, COVID happened. So we'll get to that a little later. Admission is now $29.95. In 2017, American Gods Season 1 premieres. There is no House on the Rock footage. I believe they may mention it, but Season 1 all deals to their journey getting to House on the Rock. In 2018, American Gods begins filming on location. Also in 2018, Arthur Donaldson, the person who bought it from Alex Jordan, passes away. His wife and kids are still alive, and they continue to own and host House on the Rock. That's 2018. 2019, American Gods Season 2 premieres, which is shot on location at House on the Rock. Again, that footage is on my YouTube. I only posted the footage that's actually shot there as opposed to stuff that's made somewhere else on a soundstage or doesn't actually take place at House on the Rock. So I encourage you to check that out or go watch the show in whole. It's not a bad show. There's some great actors, some favorite actors of mine are in it. Orlando Jones is amazing. Also, Jack White records a music video at House on the Rock. February of 2020, House on the Rock hosts a job fair to hire so they can reopen Inspiration Point, among other things. And we all know what happened in March of 2020, and they closed on March 16th, 2020, which was right around the time I was hospitalized. In May 21st of 2020, House on the Rock reopens with COVID safety restrictions. In 2021, the pizza restaurant is now operated by 400 Springs Restaurant Group. So House on the Rock is no longer operating the pizza restaurant by themselves. They now have another restaurant contract and do it. The pizza's back to being okay. I think that when they owned it, they were just making frozen pizzas. That's what it tasted like. I mean, what would you do if you had a restaurant on site and they left and you still had to provide pizza for people? You'd go to the grocery store, get some frozen pizzas, or you'd order in or something, Also, in 2021, American Gods Season 3 premieres with no new House on the Rock footage. There's some drama on American Gods, and they lose some of their writers and cast, too. That's another story. But yeah, Season 3 does not have House on the Rock, and which is too bad. In 2022, admission is now $32.95. Karen Donaldson, Art's wife and the woman responsible for the Christmas decorations in the Christmas season at House on the Rock, passes away. And now it's her daughter, Sue, that owns it and is in charge. And in 2023, admission is now $35.95, and you can get an annual pass, which I, of course, have done, for $79.95. Okay, I went through that whole timeline. I didn't mix up my words too much, so this will probably be the final take. I just wanted to get through it. There's a lot there, and there's a lot of numbers and a lot of stuff that I didn't know, even as an avid fan of House on the Rock. Now that I've gotten through that, I can tell you a little bit about the ceiling fans there, since this is a ceiling fan video. When I was a kid, when you first walked in, you just went to a normal, kind of ticketing building, and it had a cane, antique brass, and Con Monarch. Sadly, that's gone. The fan wasn't anything special, but I was looking forward to seeing it when I went back as an adult. That's gone. Now you, after going to the ticketing area and the building you walk into, you go to the Alex Jordan Center, which has Casablanca Mission fans, which are pretty nice and fit in with the aesthetics of the House on the Rock. The only building in the original house that has fans is the Infinity Room. When I was a kid, they were import Emersons, like Northwinds or something to that effect. As an adult, when I went back, they're now Contech Industrials, which is frankly a better choice. Gold lines would have been even better. The next building that has fans is the Streets of Yesterday, which has more Contech Industrials. I don't remember them being there when I was a kid. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. The Heritage of the Sea has more of those same Contech Industrials, and there's an Emerson Legend in the little walkway between those two buildings in black that must have been there when I was a kid, because it looks like a 90s fan, but I don't remember seeing it. I must have just been too overwhelmed by other things. The Tribute to Nostalgia has two antique ceiling fans that appeared to have been custom Alex Jordan creations. I won't tell you where they are. They're a little hard to spot, but they're there. The pizza restaurant has two gigantic custom Fanimation / Casablanca creations that Tom Frampton made in his early days. Those are still there and operating, and the pizza restaurant also has a row of 10, I've never bothered to count them, red Menards turn of the century fans that are still there. They were there when I was a kid. Some of the music machine rooms have more Contech Industrials. That's the most common fan there. And one of the rooms in the final museum section used to have two SMC DC-52s. At some point during my adulthood, not during my childhood, at some point during my adulthood, they took out one of them. I don't know why. Maybe it stopped working and they just didn't feel the need to replace it. When I was a kid, when you exited through a restaurant that I believe was called the Garden Cafe, that was just littered with polished brass Encon Monarchs without the cane showing. Think like youth center, like just fans everywhere. I was really hoping to see that install again. That is long gone. But the coolest fans are still there. So it's definitely, even if you're a fan person just going for the fans, it's worth it just for that. But again, there's so much more than just ceiling fans. I would still go if there wasn't a single fan. I'd complain. I'd offer to install some, but I would still go. Also, if you're a person that's into vintage lighting, there's a lot of vintage lighting there. And in fact, some of the original light bulbs from when it was built are still in use. I think Rick and Stuart found some that were from like the 60s and 70s that were still going. And if you watch my vlog with Jonas when we were leaving the house on the rock, Jonas stole one of the custom light bulbs that wasn't working. So I would never condone stealing a working light bulb, but a burnt out one, yeah. So, okay. I hope you've enjoyed that. I'm glad I got to share it with you. Well, not really much else to see. Join the House on the Rock Attraction Facebook group if you're interested. Again, if you're in the area, I will take you to House on the Rock. Just hit me up. Let's go. I'm always looking for an excuse to go. I'm serious about going once a week if I have somebody who's never been that I can take. For other stuff, patreon.com/dspiffy. Support our sponsors. Fanstick, Lightstick, Rigger Sheep, all the sponsors in the normal videos. As always, you can go to buyfanstick.com, fanstick.biz, lightstick.biz, buyfanstickxxx.com, or riggersheep.com if you want to have some fun with our sponsors. As always, thanks for watching, and bye Fanstick. Thanks for watching.